The baby had been screaming for 27 minutes straight. Not the soft, needy cry of hunger, but the raw, panicked wail that crawled under the skin and made grown adults grit their teeth. The kind that said something was wrong. Passengers shifted in their seats. A flight attendant hovered uselessly nearby, her practiced smile cracking. Someone muttered a curse under their breath. Another passenger turned around and snapped, "Can't you shut that thing up?" The man holding the baby didn't flinch. He sat alone in first class, broad shoulders filling the leather seat, dressed in a charcoal suit that looked tailored to violence. His jaw was clenched, his knuckles white around the small bundle in his arms. Dark eyes scanned the cabin once, slow, cold, and the man who had complained instantly looked away. Everyone on the plane felt it. This wasn't just an angry father. This was a dangerous man pretending to be calm. The baby screamed harder. Across the aisle, in Economy Plus, Mara Leone pressed her lips together and closed her eyes. "Not your problem," she told herself. She was exhausted, bone-deep tired in the way only single mothers understood. Her own toddler was asleep against her chest, warm and heavy, blissfully unaware of the tension crackling through the cabin. Mara had boarded this flight praying for silence, anonymity, a few hours where no one needed anything from her. But the baby's cries cut straight through her. She opened her eyes. The man in first class was rocking the infant awkwardly now, like someone who had never expected to hold something so fragile. His movements were stiff, controlled, like he was afraid one wrong motion might break the child. That fear didn't belong on a man like him. Mara noticed the little things others missed. The subtle way two men sat a few rows behind him, watching the aisle instead of their phones. The way the flight attendants deferred to him without understanding why. The faint bulge beneath his jacket that wasn't a wallet. She swallowed. This is not normal. The baby let out a shrill cry that turned heads again. Mara shifted, adjusting her sleeping child. Her heart started to pound, instincts warring with common sense. Every warning she'd ever learned screamed at her to stay seated, stay invisible, don't get involved. But the crying didn't stop. She stood. The moment she stepped into the aisle, one of the men behind first class lifted his head sharply. His hand twitched under his coat. The dangerous man looked up. Their eyes met. Up close, his gaze was worse, dark, assessing, carrying the weight of command. A man used to giving orders and watching them obeyed. His expression hardened as she approached, body subtly angling to shield the baby. "Sit down," he said quietly. Not rude, not loud. Final. Mara stopped, but didn't retreat. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice steady despite the hammering in her chest. I think I can help." His eyes flicked to the sleeping child against her chest, then back to her face. "You don't know what you're offering," he replied. She did. Or, at least, she knew it was dangerous. But she also knew that cry. Knew the tight little fists, the overstimulated panic, the way babies sometimes just needed something familiar, something warm, something human. "Just for a minute," Mara said softly. "If it doesn't work, I'll go back to my seat." The cabin had gone eerily quiet. The man stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he loosened his grip and held the baby out. The second Mara took the infant, the crying cut off like a switch had been flipped. Silence. The baby sighed, nuzzled into her shoulder, and went limp with relief. A collective breath released across the cabin. Mara froze. The man didn't look relieved. He looked stunned, like someone had just taken a weapon from his hands and disarmed him without permission.
"Who are you?" he asked.
Before she could answer, one of his men leaned in close and murmured something urgent in his ear, 3 words that made his jaw tighten instantly. "Boss, we've been recognized." The man's gaze locked onto Mara with sudden intensity. And in that moment, holding the most powerful man on the plane's child against her chest, Mara realized one terrifying truth. She hadn't just helped a stranger. She had just placed herself directly in the center of a world she might not be allowed to leave. Mara didn't return the baby right away. Not because she didn't want to, but because the infant had curled instinctively into her, tiny fingers gripping the fabric of her sweater like it was the only solid thing left in the world. She swayed gently, muscle memory taking over, the rhythm automatic. The man watched every movement. Close up, his presence was suffocating. He smelled faintly of expensive cologne and something darker, gun oil, maybe. Control clung to him like a second skin. Even seated, he radiated authority. "His name is Luca," he said after a moment. The way he said it, quiet, deliberate, told her it wasn't information he offered lightly. "He's beautiful," Mara replied. A pause. "No one has ever said that to me about him," the man admitted. That surprised her enough to look up. His eyes didn't soften, but something behind them shifted. A flight attendant approached nervously. "Sir, would you like?" "No," he said, without looking away from Mara. The attendant vanished. Mara's pulse thudded. "You should probably take him back." In a moment, he studied her again. "You have a child?" "Yes." "Alone?" The question wasn't curious. It was calculated. Mara hesitated. Lying felt dangerous. "Yes." He nodded once, like he'd expected that answer. Behind him, the 2 men remained alert, scanning the cabin. One had an earpiece. The other's hand never strayed far from his jacket. Bodyguards, she realized. Not friends. "I'm Adriano Duca," the man said. The name meant nothing to her, but the way the bodyguard stiffened told her everything. "You shouldn't have stood up," Adriano continued calmly. "People like me don't exist without enemies." Mara swallowed. Then why bring a baby on a plane? A faint, humorless smile touched his mouth. "Because someone tried to kill him this morning." Her blood ran cold. The plane hit turbulence then, jolting slightly. Luca stirred but didn't wake. Mara adjusted her hold automatically, shielding his head.
Adriano noticed.
"You don't ask questions most people would," he said. "I do," she replied. "I just don't always say them out loud." That earned her a longer look. Mara, before the flight. 6 hours earlier, Mara had been standing in a crowded airport terminal with a diaper bag slipping off her shoulder and her phone lighting up with overdue bills. She wasn't running toward something. She was running away. Away from a city that had chewed her up and spat her out. Away from a man who had disappeared the moment she told him she was pregnant. Away from the quiet humiliation of asking for help one too many times. This flight was supposed to be a reset. New city.
New job.
A cheap apartment near a daycare she couldn't quite afford. It wasn't a dream, but it was survival. She hadn't planned on sitting across from a man whose enemies wanted his child dead. Adriano, the man with everything. Adriano Duca had never planned on being a father either. Power, yes.
Control always.
Blood on his hands, certainly. But a baby? Luca was the result of one reckless night with a woman who'd been dead before Adriano even knew she was pregnant. The child had become a weakness his enemies were eager to exploit. That morning, a car bomb had detonated outside his villa. Wrong timing. Wrong target. Luca had been in the nursery. Adriano had ordered the private jet grounded and booked a commercial flight instead. Unpredictable, crowded, safer in ways only a criminal understood. What he hadn't planned on was a woman like Mara Leone. Soft voice. Sharp instincts. No fear in her eyes. Just exhaustion and resolve. And worst of all, Luca trusted her. The baby shifted again, eyes fluttering open briefly before settling. Adriano extended his arms. Give him to me. Mara hesitated just a fraction of a second. Adriano noticed that too. When she finally handed Luca back, the baby whimpered once, then settled, calmer than before. The man's grip tightened. You're coming with us when we land, Adriano said quietly. Her breath caught. That wasn't part of the deal. There was no deal, he replied. You've been seen with my son. My enemies don't forgive witnesses. I'm not. I know, he cut in. Which is why you'll be protected. That sounds like a threat. It's a promise. Mara stared at him, heart pounding. She had boarded the plane trying to disappear. Instead, she had been noticed by the most dangerous man on board. And he wasn't letting her go. The wheels touched down with a violent shudder. Mara felt it in her bones. Around them, passengers stirred, relief, impatience, phones coming back to life. For everyone else, the flight was over. For her, something was just beginning. Adriano didn't move. He remained seated, Luca asleep against his chest, one large hand curved protectively around the baby's back. His men stood before the seatbelt sign, even switched off, bodies angled outward like shields. Mara's instinct screamed, Sir, we've arrived. A flight attendant began. Adriano lifted one finger. She stopped mid-sentence. That alone told Mara everything she needed to know. You said I'd be protected, Mara whispered. Not detained. Adriano's gaze flicked to her. Protection and detention look the same when bullets are involved. Her stomach dropped. The aisle began to clog as passengers stood, reaching for bags. None of them noticed the man 2 rows back, the one who hadn't moved since landing. Until he did. It happened fast. Too fast. A sharp metallic click. Adriano's body reacted before his mind finished the thought. Down. The sound that followed wasn't a gunshot. It was worse. A suppressed pop. Glass shattered. Screams erupted. One of Adriano's men lunged forward as the other drew a weapon from beneath his jacket. Chaos exploded in the narrow cabin, people ducking, crying, shouting. Mara was dragged sideways as a body slammed into the aisle seat where she'd been moments before. The seat cushion exploded in foam. They're shooting at me.
No.
They're shooting because of him. Adriano shielded Luca with his own body. Crouched low, eyes cold and razor-focused. Exit now, he barked into his earpiece. Another suppressed shot hit the overhead compartment. Passengers surged toward the exits in blind panic. Mara felt hands yank her to her feet. "Move," one of the guards shouted. She stumbled, heart hammering, as they shoved through the stampede, not toward the main exit, but against the flow, toward the rear, toward a door already being forced open by airport security. Sirens wailed. The shooter was tackled 2 rows down, weapons skidding across the floor. But Adriano didn't relax. Not even when they were off the plane. Not even when the baby began to cry again. Because he knew something Mara didn't yet understand. This wasn't the attack. This was the message. They rushed her through a service corridor, past locked doors and flashing lights. The airport no longer looked like an airport. It looked like a battlefield in disguise. Mara's legs shook. She'd never been this close to death. She tasted metal in her mouth. Adriano walked beside her now, Lucas still in his arms. His calm was terrifying, like a man who'd rehearsed this moment 100 times. "Who would do this?" she demanded. "Who tries to kill a baby?" Adriano didn't answer immediately. "Then, someone who wants me to suffer longer." They reached an armored vehicle idling by a restricted exit. Black. Bulletproof. Engine running. Adriano opened the door himself. "You're coming with me," he said. "No," Mara said, too quickly, too emotionally. "I have a son. I have a life." Adriano's eyes hardened. "Then understand this. You were just identified as close to my child. My enemies don't care if you're innocent." Her throat tightened. "You don't get to choose safety anymore," he continued. "Only proximity." She looked at the baby, at the way Luca's tiny fist curled around Adriano's finger, at the blood on the airplane carpet she couldn't scrub from her memory. If she walked away, she might not survive the week. Her voice came out small. "How long?" Adriano held her gaze. "Until I eliminate the threat." That could mean days. Or years. The door closed behind her with a heavy, final thud. The locks engaged. As the car pulled away, Mara realized the truth. She hadn't gotten into the wrong car on Christmas Eve. She had gotten into a war. And the Mafia boss beside her had just made her part of his most dangerous secret. The car didn't slow down for traffic. It commanded it. Police lights flickered briefly ahead, then vanished. Gates opened without being touched. Streets emptied as if the city itself had been warned. Mara pressed her palms against her thighs to stop them from shaking. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere no one can reach you," Adriano replied. "That's not an answer. It's the only one that matters." They drove in silence after that. Luca had stopped crying, soothed by the vibration of the engine and Adriano's steady heartbeat. The man never once adjusted his hold, never shifted, never looked down to check if the baby was still breathing. He already knew. The estate appeared without warning. High walls, iron gates, cameras embedded like unblinking eyes. Armed men posted with military precision. This wasn't a house. It was a fortress. The gates sealed behind them with a sound that echoed in Mara's chest. "You're not leaving." The words replayed in her head. Inside, the villa was quiet, eerily so. Marble floors, warm lighting, Christmas decorations placed with surgical restraint. A tree stood in the corner of the great room, elegant and cold, wrapped in white lights. "No staff tonight?" Mara asked. "They were sent away," Adriano said. fewer targets. That didn't comfort her. A woman appeared at the far end of the hall, older, sharp-eyed, dressed in black like mourning was her uniform. "Nana Sophia," Adriano said. "This is Mara." Sophia's gaze cut straight through her. "So," the woman said slowly, stepping closer. "You're the reason my great-grandson stopped crying." Mara stiffened. "I didn't mean to." Sophia lifted a hand. "You did what no one else could." She turned to Adriano. "That matters." Adriano nodded once. Respect, clear and rare. They showed Mara a guest room with locks she noticed were external, as well as internal. Protection. Or containment. She sat on the edge of the bed long after the door closed, listening to the silence. This place held secrets in its walls, and she could feel them watching her. The first night, Mara didn't sleep. At 3 a.m, she heard footsteps outside her door. Voices, low, urgent. A word slipped through the crack. Valente.
She didn't know the name,
but she felt the fear it carried. Later, Adriano came to her door himself. "You should know," he said, not meeting her eyes. "The man who ordered the hit on the plane is my cousin." Her breath caught. "Family?" "In my world," he replied. "That makes it worse." She absorbed that slowly. "You're in danger because of me," he continued. "But you're alive because Luca trusts you. That makes you valuable." "Or disposable," she said. Adriano finally looked at her then. "No," he said quietly. "Not to me." The words settled between them, heavy, unresolved. He turned to leave. "Mara," he added, "if you hear alarms tonight, don't open the door. Not for anyone. Even you." A pause. "Especially not me." By morning, the villa buzzed with controlled tension.
Vonnisgang.
Orders were given. Men came and went like shadows. Mara watched from a balcony as Adriano sparred verbally with his lieutenants, power shifting with every sentence. He wasn't just dangerous. He was commanding. And somehow, despite everything, she felt safer near him than away. That scared her most of all. Sophia joined her at the railing. "You have a child," the older woman said. "Yes." "A boy." Mara nodded. Sophia's gaze softened, just a fraction. "Then you understand what Adriano fears." "I understand what he's hiding," Mara replied. Sophia smiled thinly.
"Good."
"Because this house is built on lies." Below them, Adriano looked up. Their eyes met. For a moment, the world narrowed to the space between them. Danger, attraction, and an unspoken question neither dared voice yet. How far would they go to protect what mattered most? And what would it cost them when the truth finally surfaced? The gunshot echoed through the villa like a thunderclap. Mara jolted awake, heart slamming against her ribs. For half a second, she thought it was a nightmare, until alarms wailed and red lights washed across the ceiling. "Don't open the door." Adriano's words burned in her mind. Footsteps thundered past her room. Shouts in Italian followed, sharp, furious, afraid. Then Luca cried. Not a normal cry. A scream. Mara didn't think. She moved. She yanked the door open and ran. The nursery was chaos. Glass shattered across the floor. One guard lay bleeding near the window. Another was dragging a body toward the hall. And in the center of it all, Adriano. Gun raised. jaw set, blood streaking down his temple. He was holding Luca with one arm, shielding the baby with his body. "Mara, get back," he shouted. Too late. A figure lunged from the shadows. Mara screamed.
Adriano ferido.
The man collapsed inches from her feet. Silence crashed down, thick and terrifying. Adriano turned to her slowly, eyes blazing. "I told you not to open the door." "You told me to protect myself," she shot back, voice shaking. "Not to abandon a baby." Something shifted in his expression. Respect. And something else. The revelation. They secured the villa within minutes. No more intruders. No more shots. But the damage was done. In the private study, Adriano finally told her the truth. Not the half-truths. Not the carefully chosen omissions. All of it. "Valente isn't just my cousin," he said, standing by the window. "He's Luca's legal guardian under my brother's will." Mara froze. "Your brother?" "Luca's father," Adriano said quietly. "Died 6 months ago." "You said the mother." "Is alive," he finished. "And dangerous." Mara felt dizzy. "So, why does Luca cry nonstop? Why doesn't he respond to anyone?" Adriano turned to her fully now. "Because Luca was present when his parents were murdered." The words hit like a physical blow. "He doesn't remember faces," Adriano continued. "But he remembers fear. Everyone he's been handed to since then smells like it." Mara's chest tightened painfully. "And me," she whispered. "You didn't smell like fear," Adriano said. "You smelled like survival." A knock interrupted them. Sophia entered, grim, furious. "They found the traitor," she said. "Who?" Adriano asked. Sophia's eyes flicked to Mara. Mara's stomach dropped. "It wasn't her," Adriano said instantly. "I know," Sophia replied. "It was the pilot." Mara exhaled sharply. "The attack on the plane," Sophia continued. "Valente paid him to lock the doors and avert the flight. You weren't meant to survive the landing." Mara staggered back. "So I wasn't collateral," she said hollowly. "I was part of the plan." "Yes," Adriano said. "But not for the reason you think." He hesitated, then spoke the sentence that changed everything. "Valente believes you are Luca's mother." The room spun. "That's impossible," Mara said. "I've never met your family." "You resemble her," Adriano said quietly. "Enough to fool a man blinded by obsession. He thinks you survived the hit meant for her." Mara stared at him. "So, I'm a decoy?" "No," Adriano said fiercely. "You're the reason my son is alive." Her breath caught. "Son," she repeated. Adriano closed his eyes once. "I'm not his uncle," he said. "I'm his father." Mara looked at Luca, sleeping peacefully now in her arms. Everything made sense. The crying, the connection, the danger. "You lied to me," she said softly. "Yes. You used me." At first. Her gaze snapped back to his. "And now?" Adriano stepped closer, voice low and unguarded. "Now," he said, "I would burn this city to keep you safe." A moment stretched between them. Raw, terrifying, intimate. Outside, thunder rolled. War was coming. And Mara was no longer just a passenger in the wrong car. She was the center of the storm. The villa was no longer safe. Adriano knew at the moment Luca whimpered in his sleep. The child sensed danger before adults did. We move tonight, Adriano said, voice iron hard. Valente won't stop now. Mara held Luca tighter. Where do we go? Adriano met her eyes. Somewhere no one expects you to be. They didn't take helicopters. They didn't take armored convoys. They took a fishing boat, rusted, loud, unremarkable, slipping out of the marina under the cover of rain. Mara sat below deck, Luca pressed against her chest. The engine rattled violently, but the baby stayed calm. Adriano watched from the doorway. He never cries with you, he said. Mara didn't answer. She was too busy realizing something terrifying. She wasn't scared. She should have been. But instead, she felt rooted. They arrived before dawn. A forgotten monastery hidden in the cliffs, stone walls, iron gates, no signal. This was my mother's refuge, Adriano said. Before she was killed. Mara stiffened. Valente? He nodded. They entered. Inside, it was bare but warm. Candles. Thick doors. Silence. For the first time since the plane, Mara slept. She woke to Luca crying. Not screaming. Just unsettled. Mara rose, rocking him gently. Adriano appeared in the doorway, shirtless, bruised, exhausted. You don't have to do that, he said quietly. I know, she replied. But I want to. The truth settled between them. She wasn't trapped. She was choosing. Adriano crossed the room slowly. Valente will target you next. I know. He'll claim you're Luca's mother publicly. That you ran away. Mara looked up. Then let him.
Adriano froze.
What? If he thinks I'm her, she said steadily, use it. You'd put yourself in that position? She stepped closer. I've been invisible my whole life. If being seen keeps this child alive, I can handle it. Adriano's control cracked. You don't understand what that makes you, he said. She met his gaze. Say it. He exhaled. My weakness. Silence. Then, his phone buzzed.
Sophia.
They found us, she said. Not here, but close. Valente is leaking false sightings. He wants to flush you out. Adriano clenched his jaw. He's hunting, Mara said softly. Yes, Adriano replied. And he's running out of patience. That night, thunder shook the cliffs. Mara stood on the balcony, rain soaking her hair. Adriano joined her. You should hate me, he said. I dragged you into hell. She turned to him. I was already there. I just didn't know its name. Something broke between them. He kissed her. Not gentle, not restrained. Desperate. The kind of kiss born from survival. When they pulled apart, breathless. We can't, Adriano said hoarsely. I know, Mara replied. But neither moved away. The warning. At dawn, a package arrived at the gate. No return address. Inside, a child's shoe. Luca's. And a note written in blood-red ink. Mothers should stay buried. Mara's hands shook. Adriano went deadly still. This ends now, he said. Mara looked at him. How? He met her eyes, no hesitation. We stop running. She nodded. For the first time, she wasn't just protecting a baby. She was choosing a side. And there would be no mercy. Valente didn't come with guns. He came with timing. The monastery fell silent just before dawn. The kind of silence that doesn't belong to peace, but to predators holding their breath. Mara felt it first. Lucas stirred in her arms, his small fingers curling into her shirt. "Sure," she whispered, heart pounding. Then the lights went out. The ambush. The gates exploded inward. Not loud, precise. Men flooded the courtyard in black, faces masked, movements disciplined. "Profissionals."
Adriano.
Mara screamed. Gunfire cracked through stone corridors. Sophia shouted orders. Adriano appeared at the end of the hall, firing, eyes locked on Mara. "Run," he yelled. "Take Luca and go now." She turned and froze. A gun pressed to Luca's head. The man holding it smiled beneath his mask. "No running," he said softly. "Valente sends his regards." Adriano went still, every weapon lowered. "Mara," he said carefully, "don't listen to them." The man chuckled. "Oh, she'll listen." He leaned close to Mara's ear. "You scream," he whispered, "and the baby dies." Mara's world narrowed to Luca's breath. She nodded once. "I'll go," she said. "Let the child live." Adriano's voice broke.
No.
She looked at him, really looked. For the first time, she saw fear in the Mafia king. Real fear. "This is my choice," she said quietly. She kissed Luca's forehead and handed him back the trade. They took her, bound her, dragged her into the rain. Adriano fought, but Sophia held him back, tears streaming down her face. "If you move," she whispered, "they kill her." The engines roared, and Mara vanished into the dark. Valente. She woke in a candlelit room. Stone walls. Heavy air. A cathedral converted into a prison. Valente stood before her, elegant, silver-haired, eyes empty of warmth. "You look like her," he said softly. Mara swallowed. "Who?" "Luca's mother," Valente replied. "The woman who stole my brother." "You killed her," Mara said. Valente smiled faintly. "I corrected a mistake." He circled her slowly. "You weren't supposed to survive that plane," he continued. "But fate is stubborn." "What do you want?" Mara asked. Valente stopped in front of her. "I want Adriano to come apart," he said simply. "And you are the key." They didn't hurt her body. They hurt her hope. They showed her doctored footage. Luca crying, Adriano bleeding, Sophia dead. All lies, but convincing ones. "You care for him," Valente said. "That's why this works." Mara clenched her fists. "You think being a mother is blood," Valente continued. "It's weakness." Mara lifted her head slowly. "No," she said. "It's war." Valente laughed. "The sacrifice." Hours later, Valente made the call. Adriano answered on the first ring. "You have something of mine," Adriano said. Valente smiled. "And you have something of mine." Mara was brought forward, bruised, exhausted, but unbroken. "Come alone," Valente said, "or she dies." Adriano didn't hesitate. "I'm coming." The line went dead. Mara exhaled shakily. Valente leaned close. "You see? He loves you enough to die." Mara met his eyes. "Then you've already lost." The weight. They locked her in a cell beneath the cathedral. Alone. Dark. But not hopeless. Because somewhere above her, a father was coming. And Mafia kings don't kneel. They burn empires down. Adriano stormed the monastery gates alone, rain lashing against his leather coat. Every step was calculated, every breath measured. The courtyard smelled of smoke and wet stone. "Show yourself, Valente," he shouted. "This ends now." Valente emerged, hands clasped behind his back, calm as a king surveying his battlefield. "You're late," he said. Adriano didn't reply. He lunged. Gunfire erupted, echoing through the halls. Guards fell like dominoes. Adriano moved with precision, every shot exact, every punch devastating. Valente dodged, smiled, and retaliated with brutal efficiency. They fought through corridors, stone staircases, and candlelit halls. The clash of metal, the screams, the echoing gunfire. It all seemed unreal. During the fight, Valente stumbled, blood trickling from his temple. Adriano pinned him against the wall. "Why all this?" he demanded. "Why Luca? Why Mara?" Valente's eyes darkened. "Because power isn't taken, it's inherited. And you, Adriano, have everything I wanted." Mara, freed by Sofia moments before, appeared behind Valente. "You wanted Luca?"
You wanted me, she said.
"You have nothing, only hatred." Valente snarled. "You'll all pay." Sofia, wounded but determined, sabotaged the cathedral's upper supports. Beams cracked. Fire began to spread. Valente, distracted, failed to notice Adriano's final move, a handcuff to a beam, dragging him into the fire as the ceiling above collapsed. He roared, but the chaos was total. Guards fled. Adriano grabbed Mara and Luca, pulling them to safety just as the structure began to crumble. Rain washed over the ruins. Adriano held Mara and Luca tightly. Sofia limped toward them, battered but alive. Valente?
Gone.
The empire he built was ashes. The city whispered of the night the Mafia king fell, not with a gun, but by the love and courage of those he underestimated. Days later, Adriano and Mara sat on a rooftop, watching the sunrise over the city. Luca giggled, reaching for the first rays of morning light. "You kept your promise," Mara said softly. Adriano kissed her forehead. "And I always will." Sofia joined them, smiling faintly. "Next time, we pick a quieter life."
Adriano Laugued.
Quiet isn't our style. But for the first time in years, peace, real peace, lingered over them. The city survived, the Mafia fell, and love endured. Sunlight streamed through the apartment window. Luca giggled, crawling across the floor to his mother, Mara. Adriano brewed coffee in the kitchen, exhausted but content. Sofia, seated at the table, flipped through a folder of documents, officially closing down Valente's empire. For the first time in years, silence wasn't threatening, it was comforting. Neighbors waved as Adriano carried Luca outside. Mara smiled, watching him interact with their son, gently correcting him, laughing at his tiny stumbles.
Sofia proached Adriano.
"We did it. It's finally over."
Adriano nodded.
"Yes, but we survived because we trusted each other." A small memorial was held for the innocents who suffered during Valente's reign. Friends, allies, and even former enemies attended. Adriano spoke briefly, his voice steady but full of emotion. "We remember them, not as victims, but as reminders that love, courage, and unity can conquer even the darkest tyranny. Mara held Luca close, whispering his tiny prayers of hope into the morning breeze. Weeks passed. Adriano returned to a quieter existence, helping rebuild neighborhoods once controlled by the Mafia. Mara reopened her community center, focusing on children who, like Luca, deserved safety and love. Sofia became a city investigator, ensuring no remnants of Valente's network remained. One evening, Adriano, Mara, Luca, and Sofia sat together on the rooftop, watching the city lights flicker.
Luca laughed, chasing fireflies.
Mara held his hand, smiling at Adriano. Sofia leaned on the balcony, content. Adriano finally allowed himself to dream, not of revenge or war, but of a family safe, free, and whole. The city moved forward. Adriano's name became a symbol, not of fear, but of justice and resilience. Mara's community programs flourished. Sofia's courage inspired others. And Luca? He grew knowing the truth, that love could survive anything, that family was worth every battle, and that hope was the strongest weapon of all.